delivered through the VA home telehealth program, mainly by VA home telehealth nurses. Now, wherever you are, whichever VA you're at, chances are you have a home telehealth program. You may refer patients to them. And what ACDC does is really build on this existing infrastructure to provide an intensive, comprehensive intervention for this group of patients that's persistent control. And these are the requirements for implementation. So does it work? Well, yes, it does work. It works really well, actually. Even in this refractory group of patients, we've had RCT data that shows very clinically significant improvements. In our clinical practice data, we've also seen that this actually translates into the practice setting. We actually have even more current data, hot off the presses, that has analyzed our full 125 patient cohort within VA across 5 VA centers. And the mean improvement in A1C among these clinically refractory patients is 1.36%, which is a hugely significant change in A1C. And since I'm getting the time reminder, I won't read these comments, but we have a great deal of positive feedback from veterans around ACDC. It's very well received. So as I mentioned, ACDC is currently in 5 VA centers nationally, and that includes Montana, which is the center that implemented ACDC as a result of ACDC being selected as one of the winners of the 2018 Shark Tank competition. And it's important to recognize that it is more time-intensive than standard telehealth, and to factor that in accordingly. Have some thank yous here. The last thing I'll say is that as we clinically effective and feasible, we're continuing. And if you have a problem with diabetes at your center, reach out to me, Matthew.Crowley@va.gov. Chances are we might be able to work with them. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Matt. Wonderful innovation. All right, let's call up Mr. Matt Cox, Chillicothe VA Medical Center. Bike share program. That's coming up.
Good afternoon. The bike share program was created 3 years ago, actually. It was created as an innovation spark that came to Washington, D.C. The idea was to have a local university come and teach our local veterans how to run their own business, start their own business. But we didn't get the veterans. We didn't get people that wanted to come. We also had 15 bikes that were available for our employees to sign out, but the employees did not want to use it. In April of 2019, I went to my supervisor and I wanted to talk to her about doing a pivot. I wanted to make the idea my own. In comes a gentleman by the name of Joe Lehmann. He is my lead volunteer, and he is a Marine veteran and pro cyclist. We looked at our problem. How can we use these bicycles? We wanted to focus upon now, how can we use them for physical fitness and mental stability? We created weekly guided bike rides. We did these rides every Wednesday and one Saturday a month. We started groups, 2 groups, an advanced group and a beginner ride, and we quickly had over 20 riders with us every session. We have multiple service usage. We have at our facility a mental health and a substance abuse inpatient program. What we had was veterans that were never allowed to sign out bikes. We created where they could come use the bikes for daily usage as well as use them for the week and the weekends. We saw a great rise in the graduation rates in these programs. Our voluntary services also help us out. I am a vocational rehabilitation specialist, so that's my main job. So we actually have a full-time employee or a full-time volunteer that runs our program. CBOC involvement. We actually took bike racks to every single CBOC that we have, and we started to see patients that were actually riding to and from their appointments. Peer-to-peer mentorship. We were using a healthy coping mechanism. Joe Lehmann is a pro cyclist. He will come in once a week. He'll work on the bikes. He'll show veterans how to do small bike repairs. But Joe also uses his story as he suffered from PTSD himself. Our overall goals and objectives. They are to create an inclusive adaptive sports program utilizing hand bikes and geared trike. We want to start working on those veterans who have a physical disability as well. We want to improve the transportation methods across our campus. We have a very big campus, and sometimes it's hard for those veterans to get across the campus. We use alternative sustainment approaches through our community. Through donations, we have already received over 60 donated bikes to our program. Let's talk about health promotion events. That is what we are using. We just completed a tour of Ross County Heroes ride on September 14th. This was a promotion event that we used an outside agency to complete a 50K and a 100K ride, 31 and 62 miles. In Ross County, where our VA is located, we have 4 heroes who have lost their lives since 9/11, and each have a dedicated memorial. I was able to reach out to all the families of these heroes, and they attended a pre-ride ceremony, and they also stood by their hero sign as all riders rode past their memorial sign. For our very first event, we had over 100 riders in attendance. We raised almost $5,000 that went into our adaptive sports program. And the best part, we had 6 inpatients from our substance abuse program that did our geared bike rides, They completed that ride. It shows that bicycles can and will work. Thank you.
Easy innovation. When you come into Florida, I'm gonna sign out for that. All right, let's invite Yelena Bogdanova and Kristina Eickhoff here from VA Boston Healthcare System. They are going to be featuring at-home light-emitting diode therapy for traumatic brain injury. TBI, take it away.
Good afternoon. My name is Kristina Eickhoff, and I'm with the VHA Center for Compassionate Care Innovation. I'm here today with Dr. Yelena Bogdanova. She's the lead of the LED TBI clinic at the VA Boston Healthcare System. So veterans who are enrolled at the VA in Boston have experienced life-changing improvements after starting this new home-based TBI treatment, which uses near-infrared light-emitting diode technology. And we're very excited to share some of the outcomes of this treatment with you today. So with that, Dr. Bogdanova, if you'd like to. Got it. All right.
We're here to tell you about the new LED TBI clinic that was opened in November 2017. And this is the first LED TBI clinic at the VA and, come to think of it, first in the US ever. So we're very excited to report to you about what we have achieved in 2 years. LED treatment. This is non-invasive, non-thermal, non-pharmacological, easy to administer treatment, state-of-the-art treatment, packed so nicely in light, we are about to show you how, so our veterans can take it home and can do the treatment at home. So what do? We invite them for the first in-office evaluation and trying to save time and energy for the veterans who come to us with multiple symptoms and still work and need to provide their family very busy. We're trying to combine everything that needs to be done in the first session. We do evaluation, we show them how to do the treatment, we administer the first treatment in the office, ask and tell, show them how to drink, what not to do, and we send them home. That's the beauty of the program. After that, we don't just drop them there with a medical device, although no side effects we have are reported. Still, we need to know what's happening. So we continue to follow up with them by phone. Simple. We can call it telehealth, but it's very simple. You pick up the phone and you spend 10, 15 minutes with the patient. And given the majority of our patients have multiple symptoms post TBI, we work with people with mild to moderate TBI, with chronic issues, cognitive problems, attention, focus, memory, and very commonly associated neuropsychiatric symptoms such as depression, and we accept people with suicidality, PTSD, sleep disturbance, headache, pain, and let me stop here because most of you know the constellation of post-deployment syndrome. So we deal with those folks who not only inattentive and forgetful, but now we're sending them home to do it on their own, right? So we call them once a week, and this is part of our agreement with veterans. They will do the treatment 3 times a week at home, and we'll follow up. We call to find out, do you remember to do it? Do you prefer to do it in the evening or in the morning? Do you still so relax you do it in the evening? Because majority of people use it as a sleep aid as well. I will show you the results, but the target of this treatment is exactly the symptoms that I listed at the beginning. Attention, concentration, learning of new material, and as a bonus that we did not expect much, but showed in some preliminary studies, depression improved, PTSD symptoms go down, and sleep improves in 95% people. We're talking about REM sleep quality. So what not to like? You would think, right? So the veterans kind of followed up, and now the program wants and continue follow up on the phone, which is important and critical. Why? Because bear in mind, we deal with people with mental health issues, PTSD, depression, sleep issues. So we continue to follow up once a month. And let me show you how it works. It's easy as anything. The device looks very fancy. You can take it home. This is really wonderful. LED is again non-invasive, non-thermal, non-pharmacological. You do it 3 times a week, 25 minutes, and that's how it goes. Thank you for allowing me to demonstrate. That's how you place it. It operates on battery. There you go. Click, press the button. Voila. What do you feel?
I can hardly feel anything. It's very lightweight, very cool.
That's how it's supposed to feel, because the light is hitting your skin right now. What do you feel? So if you feel anything, feel free to adjust. Now, if you're interested to know more about the results of our treatment, we'll be presenting in 2 weeks at the American Congress of Rehabilitation Medicine. And we're happy to tell you more about it. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Molly Lehmann, William S. Middleton Veteran Hospital, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, coordinated access to reduce exacerbations, COPD care. Thank you for helping me out there.
Exacerbations and exacerbations. Cool.
All right.
All right. Well, first and foremost, it's amazing to be here. Presentation after presentation, I'm just amazed by the innovations that are occurring across the VA nationwide, and I'm so grateful to even be here for 5 minutes to share my story and how I've been also helping in a small way. So I'm Molly Lehmann. I am a patient-aligned care team or PACT clinical pharmacy specialist at the Madison VA, and I've been fortunate to this presentation just a few minutes ago. Really what my hope is for today is to provide a little bit more of the clinical perspective as someone who does these visits with veterans on a regular basis. So when Ed was able to present, just want to make sure this is working, you were able to be introduced to Steve. And Steve, among all other things, also happens to have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or COPD, and it's not an uncommon issue. I'm sure in all of your respective institutions, this is a common topic. It's often something that we see patients are readmitted for or hospitalized for, and so it's an issue. And it's also a disease that occurs 3 times greater in our nation's veteran population than in the civilian population. So actually, what an opportunity. What a opportunity for us to make a change, to create a change, and to change lives for veterans by coordinating care. And earlier this week, as I'm reflecting, I recall overhearing a conversation between 2 conference attendees, and I generally try not to eavesdrop on conversations, but I just couldn't help myself in this instance. So one innovator said to another, innovation is about never ceasing to ask the question of how can we do better than this? How can we better serve our veteran patients and our colleagues than what we're currently doing? And that to me is the heart and soul of what VHA innovation and COPD care service is all about. Never stopping at good enough or a job well done, but pursuing that excellence and that individualized practice and innovation ecosystem to target the needs of each veteran as their life continues to evolve over time. So constantly reassessing that. So Kathy and Clarice, who we also were introduced to earlier, are just two examples of frontline innovators that have helped our team to answer the question of how can we do better for our veterans with COPD. And they represent all of our interprofessional colleagues, numerous colleagues who through the COPD care service are leading the charge behind our outcomes of reduced readmission rates, right, 2.9% in comparison to 22.4 as the national percent for readmissions within 30 days of discharge. And then also increasing access to primary care for patients that have had a recent COPD exacerbation. And I've engaged in the service as a PACT clinical pharmacy specialist at the Madison VA, and I've seen the impact that COPD care, coordinated effort to increase access and reduce exacerbations, we love our acronyms, the impact that that's made on our veterans. One particular story that really sticks in my mind is a veteran that didn't have a lot of exacerbations, right? It was his first exacerbation. He was coming out of the hospital and really was recently diagnosed with the disease, didn't have a lot of information about it. So we were able, through our referral tool, to get him into clinic to work with me and my nurse care manager together. And we were able to sit down with this veteran and actually learn that he was taking his inhaler that he was discharged with inappropriately. He was taking it once a day, should have been taking it twice a day, so we quickly corrected that. We also learned that he couldn't use his rescue inhaler that well, so we got him a spacer, educated him on how to use that spacer. So right there, a couple of interventions. But I think most importantly, what that led to is an opportunity for us to engage in a trusting relationship and a conversation. He began to open up and let us know that he had been feeling really concerned actually about what this disease would mean for him. We were able to connect him with various resources that the VA already has in place to ensure that we were coordinating our care to get that veteran the best individualized care that he could use. So through interventions from our pharmacists, as well as disease state education from our nurse care managers, COPD care is empowering clinicians to work together to answer the question of how can we better serve. And just as importantly, when we engage our veterans in COPD care, we seek to individualize that patient's individualized care plan, and we help to develop that deeper connection, that trust, and that sense of community. So with the impact thus far that we've noted, our team is excited and inspired to continue the journey, and we look forward to the unforeseen innovations that will emerge and evolve as we disseminate further. If interested, please reach out, join our team in our innovation journey as we continue to ask our veterans with COPD the enduring question of how can we do better and how can we coordinate to better serve you. Thank you.
So we've got Michael Boland, VA Pittsburgh Healthcare System. Come on down. Emergency delirium, maintaining patient and employee safety. Thank you, sir.
Emergency delirium. Thank you. Okay, there we go. Hi, good afternoon. I am Mike Boland. I'm a training specialist for VA Pittsburgh. I've worked in healthcare for about 25 years, but my background is behavioral health. And so for 21 of those years, I've been responding to behavioral emergencies, both inside and outside the hospital. So in October of 2018, I was called to our OR recovery suite. This was an unusual call. I responded quickly and was met by a nurse anesthetist at the door. Behind him, I could see what appeared to be a young veteran. He was very muscular, very heavily tattooed, but he wasn't escalated. He was crying. He was actually sobbing. Standing next to him appeared to be his mother. Okay? So what I learned from the nurse anesthetist was upon emerging from what they called a minor surgical procedure, this young man began to see images. The images that he saw were of friends, and unfortunately those friends were friends that he lost in combat. So he was screaming, he was yelling, he was reaching out for them, ultimately leading to the call for assistance. They just weren't sure what was going to happen. So we got him to calm a bit. At one point he looked me in the eyes and said, "Am I crying?" Which I thought was interesting. He didn't even know. So later, before I left, the veteran's mother pulled me aside and said, "I had no idea something like this could happen to him." Okay. She said, "I actually think you set him back light years in his PTSD treatment," and that one stung. Emergence delirium, as you can read, is a post-anesthetic phenomenon that occurs immediately after emerging from general anesthesia and is characterized by agitation, confusion, and at times violent behavior. So I'm fortunate to work with some really smart people. A part of a team, we developed a training, three-part training to address this, to better prepare our staff to deal with situations like this. My group, Dave Julian, training partner and training specialist, a nurse, and Amanda Beckstead, who is the brains of our group. She is a nurse anesthetist student, put this project together. Part one of the project, called Project Golden Eagle, was actually established in Pittsburgh a few years ago by nurses Dave Lynch and Rose Siebert. And it includes assessing our patients for a history of PTSD, as well as a history of emergence delirium. It includes environmental changes in the OR setting. Hearing is the first sense that returns upon emerging from an OR procedure. All right, so we're very careful what they hear when they first emerge. It includes things like wearing a golden cap to alert the staff. Visually, they can see that this is somebody that has been assessed, all right, and alerts them to, to those cues. The second part is the response protocol. We called it anesthesia staff because that's a universal call for assistance that includes steps to maintain safety. And we've also locally in Pittsburgh developed some manual restraint techniques to keep our patients safe during these events. It also includes a debriefing component. And then finally, thanks to the Spark level investment that we received, we were able to partner with the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine, their standardized patient program. If you don't know, standardized patients or SPs are medically trained actors. They're educators. They portray the role of a patient so that we can bring the level of training up to the highest level we can without seeing injuries or getting anybody hurt. If you buy into the old, it's an old Greek saying that you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your lowest level of training. We needed to make sure that the lowest level of training was very high for our staff. So this is sort of a quick timeline that I wanted to show you, and at the risk of sounding dramatic, in May of 2017, that was sort of our ground zero for the starting point. This is when our OR staff began to ask questions. They would come to a training that I was providing. And actually, Bill Pileggi, the nurse anesthetist, raised his hand and said, what do you do when a veteran goes to sleep in Pittsburgh but wakes up in Vietnam? What do you do when a veteran goes to sleep in Pittsburgh and wakes up in Afghanistan? Okay, so these were tough questions. And you can see over the course of a few months, we were developing training. By June, we were implementing that training. And thanks to that Spark level investment, we were able to bring in those actors. And then finally, by 2019 September, we had our PACU, our OR. Anywhere sedation medication is used, we had those staff trained. Here's a quick handout. We wanted to make sure that we were educating our patients and their family members so that they understand what emergence delirium is. Sadly, many of our veterans, they didn't know the words necessarily, but they knew the symptoms. They would tell us things like, be careful when you wake up. I've been told I like to swing, or touch my right foot only. Okay, so this was important. I wanted to make sure that we were educating them. Our next steps, and I see that my time is up. So I didn't include my contact information. So if you would like to hear more about this project, you have to do it the old-fashioned way and just come and meet me. And I have cards that I can give out. So thank you for your time.
Stephanie Woodworth. Stephanie's from North Florida, South Georgia with Harmonicas for Health. That's my backyard. I'm joining.
Thank you for having me. 16 million Americans suffer from COPD. And as we've heard multiple times here today, COPD is a costly and debilitating disease. And our veterans are 3 times more likely to have it than the general population. So it helps to use the.
Let me put for you.
Here we go. And research has shown that pulmonary rehabilitation don't have VA at North Florida and South Georgia does not have it available. So our Spark project, Harmonicas for Health, was introduced as an inexpensive, accessible, self-directed alternative to pulmonary rehab, the traditional form. We identified and recruited participants from our home oxygen program, and in conjunction with our pulmonary medicine docs, we obtained COPD foundation kits and distributed them to our veterans on home oxygen visits and in our pulmonary clinics. We recruited 22 veterans in our program. 6 of them dropped out or passed away early on, and that left us with 16 veterans to complete the program. And basically, we wanted to look at the usage, daily usage of the harmonica. 10 of our veterans reported that they use it occasionally, and 6 reported that they use it on a daily basis. And we asked them to use it for at least 15 minutes a day to get some sort of benefit from the project. And at the end of the project, and basically the assessment test is a quality of life tool that ranges from 0 to 40, and lower scores on the COPD CAT score represent very little symptoms associated with COPD, and the higher score represents more symptoms or a sicker patient, basically. And if you look at here, our veterans basically scored in the middle section of the CAT score, and that represented sort of a medium-high CAT score. We didn't see a great change from the beginning or the end of our pilot program, which didn't statistically represent any of our pilot program, which didn't statistically represent any. The timeline we did the scoring was important. We did the first score in April, and that represented a time when it was easier for them to breathe. And then later in August or September, basically the veterans reported that they were having more exacerbations due to the heat and humidity in Florida. So what did we learn with our harmonica project? Basically that the CAT score is a good baseline for COPD symptoms, but it's not necessarily like the best or optimal reflection of what harmonica use could be. We really relied on subjective sort of statements from the veterans. Many of them said, it keeps me company, it helps to get the air out, it's fun, or my favorite, I just use it because it drives my wife crazy. We found that participant selection is really important. Some veterans are really independent and they will use it on their own. Other veterans really would benefit from a group therapy scenario. They need more education, they need more support. So going forward, we're actually looking at seeding to our local domiciliary in Lake City, where we can bring the program to them. Initially, not many indicated they wanted to do a program. So we're gonna bring it to the domiciliary where they're in one central location. We're gonna look at using video conferencing or VA Video Connect to connect with our rural patients. And we're gonna seed with local VA partners in Pittsburgh and in Tampa. And lastly, I just want to share with you one of our star veterans. Thank you.
All right, let's call up Ms. Kristina Snell and Carole Fuseck from VA Northeast Ohio Healthcare System. I'll be your clicker.
Good afternoon, and thank you for attending our session. My name is Carole Fuseck. I'm here from Cleveland, Ohio, clinical nurse specialist.
And I'm Kristina Snell. I'm the Intermediate Care Technician National Program Field Collaborator.
Our spread innovation is the Intermediate Care Technician Diffusion of Excellence. Next slide, please.
So intermediate care technicians are former military medics and corpsmen. And as you can probably see on the slide, they do care coordination, patient navigation through our complex system, and they're also bring that clinical skill set. But bottom line up front, they really break down the silo of the traditional technician role, the traditional TCT, the RN role, the physician, role. We do kind of everything within all of those roles within VHA.
Next slide.
Okay, so originally our program started as a pilot in the emergency room with 15 facilities. And this year we focused our spread on diffusing our best practice. Okay, so originally our program started as a pilot in the emergency room with 15 facilities. And this year we focused our spread on diffusing our best practice.
We hosted a day of innovation in March of 2019 with 32 facilities attending and over 60 attendees. And this was so well received. We had a day of presentations, sharing information, and discussion. This was so well received that we were asked to repeat this on the West Coast to include Vision 2021 and 22. And we co-hosted this with the Palo Alto VA. 35 facilities and over 40 attendees. Next slide.
So this is our second year presenting at Innovation, and I still want to vomit and run off the stage. But we are so happy and so excited to be here, even though I'm terrified. Because of Innovation, we've had the largest 2 growth years of this program that we've ever had in the history of onboarding this in the last 6 years. And so that's really, really exciting. So I just wanted to share that. This innovation network really helps you to aspire to where you want to be and get you there.
Next slide. So what you're looking at is a national phase map. And this map is our tracking for the phase of onboarding the ICT programs. There are over 30 facilities with an ICT program currently, and 25 facilities who are in phase 3 of onboarding. And altogether, almost 100 VA facilities nationwide are engaged in the ICT implementation program.
Go to the next slide, I think. Okay, so what does Innovation do for us for our expansion? Because of the notoriety of this program now, after having 2 spread innovations, we were able to grab the attention of the Transitioning Military Personnel Initiative through Workforce Management Consulting at VACO. And because of that, we have now an applicant tracking system where ICT candidates can put their preferences where they want to live and work. So we're going to bring the care to them. And when they transition out, we're going to help them take care of our veterans where they want to be. It also grabbed national attention for clinical resource hub development. So now we are partnering with clinical resource hubs, and you will see ICTs performing telemedicine, working in primary care, specialty, and mental health all around the nation in each VISN. The other thing that we were able to do is grab the attention of what we needed to work on, and I have no idea who's keeping time, so just yell at me. I'm trying to picture you all naked, but it's not working out. But it also grabbed the attention of what we needed to work on. Thank you. And what we really needed to work on was PDs outside of our pilot program to be able to facilitate this expansion. So we were actually assigned a national classification expert for this rollout because of this attention and because of what we garnered and because of how we spread. And that was really important to us. So I'm happy to announce that we have 2 nationally classified PDs that will be completed in November in order to be able to spread this. And we have about 50 other medical centers looking to onboard in other areas. So thank you guys so much. That's our presentation.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Ms. Melissa Smigelsky, Duro VA Healthcare System, Mental Health, and Chaplaincy Dynamic Diffusion Network. You want me to click or you want
All right, hi everyone. My name is Melissa Smigelsky, and I'm a clinical psychologist with VA Mental Health and Chaplaincy. I'm here today to tell you about the Dynamic Diffusion Network, or DDN, which is actually innovation within innovation. But before I explain what I mean by that, let me set the stage a little bit. The men and women who fight our nation's wars are asked to see and do things that are virtually never asked by the rest of society. While the public may refer to veterans as heroes, many veterans carry with them feelings of guilt, shame, moral outrage, and profound sadness. They might feel betrayed by their leadership, the American public, their higher power, and even themselves. The burden of these feelings can lead to lives of isolation and anguish. Far too many veterans' lives are claimed every day by deaths of despair, deaths due to substance abuse, disconnection, and suicide. Can you imagine suffering from guilt and shame so deeply that you choose not to have surgery to fix your paraplegia because you don't believe that you deserve to walk? Can you imagine what it's like to yell at your children, pushing them away on purpose because you believe deep down in your soul that you're a monster and that those children are better off without you? Despair should not be the reward for choosing to serve and sacrifice for this country. Veterans deserve lives worth living, lives of meaning and purpose. Research has shown that many veterans who seek VA care do so for help making sense of their traumatic experiences. In post 9/11 veterans, a lack of meaning and purpose has been shown to be a risk factor for suicide, along with a perceived lack of control over one's life, problems with self-forgiveness, and believing that one is being punished by God. These kinds of struggles often show up in veterans with moral injury, which is a subjective experience that results from a violation of one's deeply held sense of what is right. Like suicidality, moral injury is an existential struggle without a single best practice to address it. In the absence of best practices, frontline providers confront these complex problems without clear guidance. As a result, some take initiative to develop new care approaches that bridge the gap between what exists and what is desperately needed. In the DDN, these frontline providers are chaplains who have undergone specialty training in mental health integration through mental health and chaplaincy, and their mental health colleagues. Each team is doing something different related to moral injury and suicide prevention. 2 of the teams have even won previous Shark Tank competitions for their work. But even those winners recognized that their practices can be enhanced through ongoing evaluation and iterative improvement. So we've developed a method of evaluation, implementation, and dissemination that capitalizes on the wealth of knowledge that these 13 teams possess, also equipping them with the structure, support, and accountability they need to make their practices even better, to work more effectively, and to consider dissemination thoughtfully and responsibly. This image gives you an idea of the roadmap that we use to provide that structure, support, and accountability. The details are not important today, but let me tell you 3 things about the way the network functions. 1, dynamic diffusion is all about continuous quality improvement. As the network facilitators, we regularly solicit feedback about what's working well and what can be improved about the network experience, and then we act on that feedback, modeling continuous improvement of our own process. 2, we listen to what teams say, and we also get them talking to each other. Teams refine their practices by learning from each other's experiences, saving them precious time and effort. Saving them effort. And 3, by fostering experiences, saving them precious time and effort. And 3, by fostering 13 different innovations at once, we are advancing moral injury and care and suicide prevention much more rapidly than would be possible if we focused on only one intervention at a time. We're advancing in leaps and bounds through a coordinated network of tiny steps. I can't possibly tell you about all of those tiny steps that each team has taken during our first phase, but you can read just a few examples here on this slide. In the bigger picture, we hope that dynamic diffusion will become a model that others will use to tackle complex health problems like moral injury and suicide. Thank you.
Let's invite Ms. Elizabeth Oliva up from VA Office of Mental Health and Suicide Prevention. VHA Rapid Naloxone Initiative. Yes, I was looking.
Okay.
Do it for it.
Hi, so does this include
Not so much.
okay. Okay, so I can speak loudly in this let me know if you want me to go to the podium. So some of you may have seen my talk yesterday, and so today I'm going to actually talk about a broader initiative that we've been doing with the VHA Rapid Naloxone Initiative, and I cannot talk about this without acknowledging Carole McCoy, who's in the audience, who is our diffusion specialist, and Molly Brick, who may be watching, and Katrina Young, and the diffusion folks who really helped with standing up this program. So thank you to those folks. So the VHA Rapid Naloxone Initiative, basically, I think, as you know, we are in an opioid overdose epidemic. We know that there is a intervention that can prevent overdose death, which is the leading cause of accidental death in the nation. And we know that, we also know that naloxone is highly effective if it's given at the time of overdose. And so it's really important that people that are going to be potential bystanders to an overdose have it and are able to use it. And so I have a couple of the demos. I don't know how many of you have actually seen these, but basically we have two different formulations that are FDA approved. 90% of people can use these without any training. It's pretty amazing. So essentially what we have done is we have actually put in, yesterday I talked about OAD, and so the VHA Rapid Naloxone Initiative makes sure that no veterans die on our watch. That if a veteran overdoses or a patient overdoses or somebody who is on our campus overdoses, that we are able to rapidly respond with either VA police being equipped with naloxone or having it in AED. And so that's been kind of the major push we've been doing this past couple years. So this is a timeline, and so I forgot to actually put in, yesterday I put in a picture of when I was pregnant. I was actually pregnant with my second child when this, I don't want to get pregnant anymore. I feel like national initiatives keep coming at me when I get pregnant. So when this initiative came out, basically had the gold status fellow on our national calls, and we had numerous calls where we really were trying to, kind of almost passive implementation. What will people do without actually having the mandate thou shout, okay? And so we developed toolkits. We knew right away AED cabinet naloxone, there was a lot of questions about it. We needed to develop a toolkit, so we developed a toolkit. And then it was selected as a national diffusion. And once that was done, we basically were like, okay, we actually do need a VA police toolkit. VA police didn't necessarily think that they needed one, but we knew that they needed one. So we developed the VA police toolkit. And then the memorandum came down, which is that in September 2018, it was recommended, encouraged that all VA facilities implement by December 2nd, 2018. So places were given 3 months to implement this. And with the help of Diffusion, we basically, this is my daughter, who I was pregnant with when this initiative came up, and this is just a schematic. This is what we've done in 2 years. So we have gotten 56 facilities, 693 AED cabinets equipped with naloxone. We've had 6 reversals. VA police are carrying these. We have it in over 116 facilities, and over 2,700 police officers, over 120 reversals. I think the key metrics, though, are this will kind of similar to the previous presentation. This shows you what happens. This is the first bar. It's basically what happens without any sort of diffusion support. And then the second bar is in April. So this is after 7 months or so of implementation. So we had a huge bump in this when diffusion came on board. This I presented yesterday. This is my son. He's as old as the OED initiative. And we've had, and this is the thing I want to actually show. So I didn't get to focus on it yesterday, but we have over 22,000 unique prescribers in VA who have prescribed naloxone. Many of you actually, if you are a provider or prescriber or a facility director who has supported naloxone, can you please stand up? I want to make sure people, that when we talk about diffusion, stand up if you are a pharmacist. I know you're back there. Pharmacists who've implemented naloxone. Stand up, guys. Molly, I know. Yeah, so or if you're a facility director who's supported it, anyone who's actually supported naloxone being implemented, who has supported veterans who are at risk, making sure they get naloxone. How many of you have a veteran at risk who has naloxone right now? Please stand up if you're a provider and you know that your veteran has naloxone. This is my call to action to you guys. We have over 205,000 veterans. We need a lot more to have it. We have 800 reversals. This works. My call to action to you, we know it's preventable. We want you to make sure any at-risk veteran that you see these patients can show up anywhere. COPD, huge risk factor. So any patient anywhere who might need it, it's free. Make sure they get it, and make sure that they're if you want to learn more about the Naloxone initiative, there's information of toolkits.
Who do we have next? It's Natalie Akbar. So, VA Medical Center, RN State interview.
I'm Natalie Hackbar. I'm the Associate Chief Nurse for Mental Health at the Toma VA in Toma, Wisconsin. I want to ask you, what do you think about on the way to work? What do you tell others about your job? Is there any reason this is not the right place for you to work? Now, when's the last time your manager or your manager's manager RN stay interviews? RN stay interviews were designed to fix the problem of nursing turnover. In FY16 Q3, Toma VA had a 14.1% RN turnover rate, ranking us 128th in the nation. Within 1 year, with a lot of strong leadership support and some small and large changes, we reduced our RN turnover by 52%. These RN stay interviews consist of 4 open-ended questions. We have the first level manager do a 30-day interview and a 90-day interview. The second level leader does a 90-day interview. And then the nurses that have been at the facility for quite a while said, what about me? Don't you want to know what I think about things that could be better? So we started doing annual interviews of the staff. We initially designed them for RNs, but eventually we've been doing them for outpatients, nursing assistants, and on the mental health staff. So what is the return on investment? It can be done on all employees. The benefits, they impact staff turnover, impact all employee survey, psychological safety with all levels of leadership. As a second level leader, when I do these interviews with staff, I'm able to know their name, they're able to know my name. My office is a safe place for them to come and talk about concerns, assisting with our quest for a high reliability organization. We've also spread to West Texas and East Oklahoma. So why do people stay? People don't stay in their jobs for 30 years to get that gold watch anymore. Yeah. I love jobs, and when you leave a job, they have a potluck, they give you cards and presents and love and tell you how great you are on the day that you're leaving. Also in the VA, we celebrate you when you've been at the VA for 5 years. So when I've left the jobs, I felt like maybe if I got that recognition and love when I was working, I may not have left. So that's something to consider. If you're reviewing exit interviews, it's too late to affect turnover rates. So are you tired of watching people leave? Are you tired of onboarding, recruiting, or are you spending your money on parking ramps when maybe access to an after-hours pharmacist is some big thing that the staff would enjoy to make their job better? So what about your job makes you want to jump out of bed and come to work in the morning? Start stay interviews today. Your veterans deserve it.
All right, let's invite Ms. Kate Dicer up, Lebanon VA Medical Center, short stay joint replacement.
My name is Kate Dicer. I'm an orthopedic surgeon at the Lebanon VA, and I'm here to talk about my short stay joint program. So to give you a little background, total joint replacement is a very common elective procedure in orthopedics, and over 600,000 knees are replaced every year in the United States. A typical story begins with knee pain that results from thinning cartilage and arthritis. Replacing the arthritic in the knee decreases pain in the knee and restores function. As you can imagine, this procedure can be very painful, and historically, our hospital stay was 3 or 4 days to mobilize. Now, we have a great facility, and the nurses are wonderful, so they like being patients. There's a picture of a happy nurse patient on the screen, but that's not necessarily the best thing for them to stay forever and gets in the way of their recovery and their rehabilitation. So what do we do to improve this situation? My solution was to come up with a strategy to safely shorten the hospital stay after knee replacement specifically, and we created a 1-day stay with immediate post-op entry into physical therapy. In order to accomplish this, we collaborated with anesthesia, pharmacy, and physical therapy. We used special pain blocks in the OR that only block sensation but not motor. We used new combinations of non-narcotic pain medicine called multimodal pain therapy that decreases sensation, decreased sedation. And finally, we started formal physical therapy the day of surgery that connected them with their mission of rehab. This revolutionized our care, and we started seeing a 1-day stay instead of 3 days or more. So did this work? When we started at this VA, our national data showed over 3 days, 3.6 days or more. And just before the innovation program started, there was a decrease in the amount of narcotic pain medication. Our numbers were coming down gradually. And then once we initiated the innovation program, that's it, days, and these are the sequential numbers of patients. You can see we're bouncing between 3, 4, 2 days initially. Then once we started the innovation project and we got our special blocks, we dropped down almost immediately to 2 days. And once we got physical therapy on post-op day 0, we just trained who's had a stroke or something like that, and they just need some extra. Go to our program, a savings of 70 days at $7,000 a day, cost avoidance or cost savings of $490,000 during this time. You can see the blue is the number of historical, or the number of days they stayed that we see now, and then the savings is the green line that's skyrocketing up. What are some other clinical results? We've decreased narcotic use significantly, and other people have talked about this today. We use almost none. There's a national push to do this anyway, and this makes it easy. Also, we have had, during this program, no blood clots or DVTs, which is something you sometimes see in post-op joint patients. We think that's because they get up and moving early. And what does this mean for the veteran? You know, instead of the hospital patients, our veterans feel empowered. They take on the role of kind of an athlete in training instead of a passive patient. One of our favorite veterans, Rick Rader, describes himself as an invalid in his own home before he had his knees replaced. He had bone arthritis and had difficulty getting around. Due to the athlete mentality that we brought him, he set his sights on the Anchorage Golden Age Games and wanted to compete with what he called the best of the best. And he won 5 medals in the Golden Age Games 7 months after he had both knees replaced. So he's committed to what he calls fitness for life now. And I thought we weren't supposed to use videos, but on our Facebook page at RVA, we have videos of Rick Rader and his story. But this is an example of what you do for patients when you empower them and kind of bring them into the process of getting better. So since this works so well, we want our program to continue to grow, and the Innovation Network has definitely helped us do this, and look forward to continuing to work with this. Thank you.
Stepping on fall prevention education through telehealth.
There we go. Okay. Hi, my name is Alyssa Liverette, and this is Sonia Beaches, and we are from the Physical Therapy Department in Martinsburg, West Virginia. We are here because I thought it was amazing. When I came to the VA, got to walk in the door, and veterans could come in and get assistive devices with a fancy console. They were able to be seen on site that day, whether it was a cane, a walker, or a rollator. We were able to fit them and train them and send them on their way. However, I took a step back and realized, like most of you guys in here say, can we do better? We weren't telling them anything about fall prevention, and there was no follow-up after they were out our doors. So 1 in 4 Americans over the age of 65 fall every year. 1 in 5 of them have a serious fall-related injury. When I looked at our specific veteran data, we have over 18,000 veterans over the age of 65. With a fall-related injury being over $30,000, Martinsburg alone probably spent about $27 million in fall-related injuries last year alone. So I thought we need to do something about this.
So we went from giving those veterans a rollator, sending them out the door, to being able to deliver fall prevention education via telehealth. The system we came up to deliver this to our veterans was a fall screening prevention system. We first identify our veterans, age 60 plus, they're all asked fall screening questions. They're basic, there's 3 questions that they're asked. If those questions are positive, they're referred to our steady screening clinic. At the screening clinic, they get some balance screening, a cognitive screen, a pharmaceutical review, and if appropriate, they're referred back to physical therapy, or if appropriate, referred to our Stepping On Fall Prevention Education Series. The Stepping On Fall Prevention Series is a 7-week class. Why do we do it? Because it works, and veterans really like it. It's well researched. It's shown to reduce fall risk by 30 to 50%. It's a multidisciplinary class involving physical therapy, pharmacy, and the low vision expert. Once they complete that class, the follow-up is referring them to community-based exercise programs or our in-house, Tai Chi program. We used Spark funding to start this program. We trained 3 leaders to teach the class. That also included the license to use the program and the basic materials to start the class. Why is this innovative? Because until now, Stepping On has only been an in-person class. That's how it was researched originally. We have been making adaptations to be able to provide it via telehealth to improve access to our rural veterans, which we have a lot of in our community. So not only are we the first VA presenting this fall prevention education via telehealth, I believe we're the first facility in the country. We've completed 1 trial run with a telehealth participant. And so our setup is an in-person class at our main hospital, and then a telehealth participant is at a local CBOC. We're in the middle of our 2nd pilot with our telehealth participant. Things are going well. We're collecting data on these veterans, including fall risk, patient satisfaction, behavior change, and the variety of barriers that we have encountered.
So I'm sure some of you are familiar with some of the barriers at your own hospital. Time, space are among the few, but despite some of the barriers, this has been an extremely successful program. Both our in-person and virtual participants found 100% satisfaction, 100% would recommend to other veterans, and 100% both in-person and virtually improved in 1 or more of their fall risk screening tests. Our virtual participant, our only one who has completed the whole series, actually improved in every single fall risk category. We hope to continue to work on making a better connection, communication between our in-person and virtual participants. But the fact is I had a patient come in a couple weeks ago. He needed a cane for balance. I was able to give him that cane, and I recommended this program. He said, well, I'm sorry, I live 200 miles away. But the reality is he's actually in our last
Ohio healthcare system, innovative method to reduce falls in home-based primary care.
So thank you all for sitting through this. We're in the home stretch here. So our project is a music-based intervention, which was developed by a company called Advanced Brain Technologies. And what they do is they record high-definition classical music that's acoustically modified to target specific neural pathways. The patients are given a preloaded iPod Touch and a bone conduction or air conduction headset with noise-canceling headphones to get the level of stimulation we want to provide them with based on their assessments, which we'll talk about in a little bit. These are some of our targeted areas of These are some of our targeted areas of improvement. As you can see, this encompasses the whole person. It targets emotional, physical, and physiological aspects of the veteran. It results in overall improvements in quality of life and falls reduction.
And these are the diagnoses that we have used within our own program so far. The growth that we've seen is with our Parkinson's patients. Yes. So here's a list of the facilities that are successfully using the listening program throughout the government. Currently, the prosthetics central office does not consider this a prosthetics item, so our veterans would have to purchase it out of pocket. So we're extremely thankful that the Cleveland Front Office and Innovators Network, thanks Bill, wherever you are, has been funding us for our program. So here's the bottom line for our program. These are the standardized tests that we have been completing pre and post intervention. The functional independence measure, fall risk reduction, the listener screening tools, quality of life questionnaire, and the timed up and go, which is a fall reduction or fall risk screening tool. This data is based off of 12 patients so far, and as you can see, they've improved in every area. So unfortunately, there's been a number of patients not included in our data collection. We completed the program with 9 patients before we started doing the standardized tests. And then unfortunately, we've had a few patients that could not complete the program. As you can see on the slide, one of our patients died, one of our patients' grandson was murdered. We had a bed bug infestation, which we have in home care, unfortunately. And then a cancer diagnosis and a couple of other things. So we're currently completing the program right now. So our project next steps are, we are hoping to have prosthetics recognize the listening program as a prosthetics item. And we would like to expand. We've been in talks with some other departments that are inpatient within Cleveland VA system. And we'd like to see other hospitals throughout the country use this to achieve similar results. Some other things just of note is the project cost is about $1,000 to $1,600 per patient, which as we've seen in many of the presentations, if you prevent one fall, that's a $30,000 plus cost. So cost-wise, it definitely has benefit to this, but also our veterans are reporting an improved quality of life, which is a significant measure. And then our last slide, I believe, is just the references.
That's it. Eickhoff, certainly done these Lebanon VA Medical Center Seeing Legs. Their photography group. Welcome.
Veterans are going from shooting to shooting with Canon and learning to find themselves through the seeing lens.
And we're from the Lebanon VA Medical Center in Pennsylvania. Today we're here with our team members, Teresa Stump-Klinger from Social Work and Dr. Grant Taylor from Lebanon Valley College.
Veterans with substance abuse and mental health issues are often difficult to engage in treatment. They have high dropout rates. This leads to symptom relapse and poor clinical outcomes. There's a growing recognition that there's a need for innovative programming. Traditional therapies are no longer working. The Seeing Lens Therapeutic Photography Group was developed in partnership with Lebanon Valley College and represents a new and innovative approach to mental health treatment. The Seeing Lens engages the practice of photography with the art of recovery. So it links the two together. The Seeing Lens uses teaching photography skills to promote healing, foster recovery, and enhance well-being. This is our 10-week treatment program. And what it does is it links components of recovery to a photography technique. In doing this, it allows for us to look at recovery in a different way. So the part, for example, the first session, the component of recovery is the recovery topic and its introduction to the camera. So if all the components of your camera are not there, are you gonna get a clear picture? If you don't have all the components of recovery, are you gonna have a successful recovery? That's how we link the two, and that's what we do for the 10 weeks of our program. So far, we've had 12 veterans complete the program.
Results from our program have just been amazing. We've had a 91% completion rate compared to 47% in traditional mental health settings. 0 no call, no shows compared to 25% in traditional mental health settings. And 0 veterans had to be admitted to a higher level of care while they were in our program. Our program measures were the brief symptom inventory and veteran self-report of their symptoms. Outcome data from these measures indicate clinically significant increases in emotion regulation and being present, decreases in feeling depressed, anxious, stressed, fearful, or distractible. Based on our pre and post data from the first 2 cohorts, we have added 2 additional measures for this session, one for mindfulness and one measuring self-efficacy. Currently, we have a wait list for our next session. Most remarkable, though, are the comments from the veterans themselves. One veteran stating, "In the darkest of days, my camera gave me peace. Instead of focusing on the darkness, I picked up the camera and tried to find the light." And another veteran, "As soon as I looked through the viewfinder, I had an inner stillness. I finally understood mindfulness." Despite these great outcomes, we have had some challenges, one of them being finding an instructor with technical skills and time dedicated to the program, another some technology glitches, and a third dedicated space. However, we were able to overcome all of these barriers.
The benefits went way beyond the 10-week program. 40% of the veterans who participated in the program went out and bought their own cameras. They established their own photography club. From that photography club, we have done several community trips. We came to DC, and we've also done a fall foliage trip. In addition, there's a gallery showing, and the gallery showing is also here. It was at LBC. As the outcomes indicate, the Seeing Lens Therapeutic Photography Group is a promising clinical practice that can help veterans to heal, grow, and recover through the camera lens. Thank you.
Duly expired. Thank you to the presenters, the timekeepers, and the judges. Remember to tweet our posts about your favorite iEx demo using the VHA iEx app. And don't forget to attend the awards ceremony starting at 4:30. In addition to the iEx demo awards, they will also be presenting awards for the VHA Shark Tank competition, the poster session, and the Innovator of the Year. Thank you all.